it's Friday. It's 16 after 8. Let's bring him in. Film study professor Joe Fortunato with us as he takes us to film school. All right. Well, it's the month of October. And what better way to start off the month of October with an iconic, I don't want to say a horror movie, but it's a fun, scary type movie. And Joe, my friend, you take it from there.
Good morning, everybody. And, you know, I struggled with how to do this one today myself because it is sort of beyond definable. We are going to be talking today about the 50th anniversary, if you can believe it, of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which was released the end of September 1975. It was directed by Jim Sherman. It was written by Jim Sherman and Richard O'Brien, based on the musical play written by Richard O'Brien, who also plays the character Riff Raff in the movie. This is Richard O'Brien's baby here. He is the main creator. It stars Tim Curry, Susan Sarandon, Barry Bostwick, Meatloaf, and the aforementioned Richard O'Brien. And like I said, this is a kind of a hard one because this is a cult film. This is probably the dictionary definition of a cult film.
Yeah.
In fact, Entertainment Weekly listed their top 50 cult films of all time, and this was number 2. Kind of surprised it wasn't number 1. By the way, Spinal Tap was number 1. And anyway, so this is sort of one of those things to talk about today where I'm guessing everybody's heard of this movie, but probably not a lot of our listeners have actually seen it. So I'm going to do my best to give some fun stuff here. Just to give you a little log line of what the movie's about, a rain-soaked couple, played by Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick, take refuge in a castle of a mad scientist from outer space who's about to unveil his greatest creation. And when this movie first opened, it had a traditional release, meaning it just was released in theaters, with afternoon and evening screenings, but it bombed. And it was only when they started doing midnight screenings that were starting to become popular in the mid-'70s that word of mouth began to spread, and that midnight audience might enjoy this movie, and they began showing it at midnight in a few cities, and it became so popular that it's been shown continuously since 1975, making it the longest theatrical run in history. Wow. So this film has never left the theaters since it came out 50 years ago. So pretty impressive. A very modest budget of only $1.2 million. And the official numbers say its worldwide gross is $111 or $116 million. So that's a heck of a return on investment. Producer Lou Adler said in a documentary that it was more closer to $200 million. So again, pretty incredible return on investment. And like I said, it's a cult movie to define all cult movies. It's based on the 1973 musical stage production, like I said, that was written by O'Brien. And it's a tribute to science fiction and horror B-movies of the 1930s through the early 60s. So it's a lot of fun. You mentioned it being a horror movie. It certainly is kind of that, but it's a comedy. It's a musical. It's a little bit of everything. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. O'Brien had loved science fiction and B horror movies ever since he was a kid, and he wanted to combine those elements into in sort of like even a 50s rock and roll type musical. So there's a lot of genres here, and what they were trying to go for was a darker version of Wizard of Oz, and I think in that regard they probably succeeded. This is the theatrical movie debut of Tim Curry. Kind of made his career. He didn't like talking about this movie earlier in his career, but he's kind of come to grips with it, and he's a lot more willing to talk about it. His character is the mad scientist, Dr. Frank Enfurter, is his character's name, and he modeled his voice after Queen Elizabeth II and his mother. And like I said, it had an unusual release because it was released normally and then kind of found its footing in midnight screenings. And then they had a second film poster that was, and I always like to get a good Jaws reference in. The poster had the tagline, a different set of Jaws, which was a spoof of the Jaws poster because Jaws was also released in that time and hugely popular. So they kind of said, hey, we got a different set of Jaws. Come take a look at our movie. And, you know, kind of a fun fact that I don't think a lot of people might know if they've never seen the movie, especially here for our Northeast Ohio audience. The film actually takes place in Northeast Ohio. Brad and Janet are looking at a map, and it shows the map of Chillicothe, Ohio, and they're near MacArthur, Ohio. She is reading the Plain Dealer newspaper in the car, so a little local connection that probably a lot of fans might not even be aware of.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. This one, I think Joe said it best. It's just fun. I mean, I think you just can't have anything but fun in taking this in. And, you know, Susan Sarandon, Barry Bostwick, when you go back to 75, they were just getting started, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were technically the name stars of the picture, but, you know, they weren't huge stars by any stretch at that point. And the rest of the cast was mostly English cast because that was part of the deal. It wasn't a great, you know, it was a low budget thing. It wasn't a great experience. Now, by the way, well, let me tell you this. Susan Sarandon told the studio heads that there was no heat and there was no bathrooms on the set. And they said that she was complaining too much, which I don't think is too much to ask for on a movie set. Her and Barry Bostwick, it was revealed years later, were actually dating at the time while they were on the film. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, it had, like I said, an unusual release and you know, how it came to be famous, but it kind of continues that. It also benefited from a 20th Century Fox, they released the film, a policy to make archival films available to theaters at any time. So meaning theaters could run old films anytime they wanted to. You know, there was stipulations on new releases and new film weekends, but that wasn't the case. So because this was a library film, they could run it any time. And then once the Walt Disney Company acquired 20th Century Fox, they also changed their rules because normally they would put old movies in the Disney vault, they call it, and they would kind of embargo it for a few years to kind of gain momentum. They took that rule away for Rocky Horror Picture and said, nope, they can show this as much as they want, as often as they want. And that kind of continues its long run. A little bit about casting. We always enjoy casting. Steve Martin auditioned for the role of Brad, which went to Barry Bostwick. There was actually originally they kind of had a choice to make. Do they want a bigger budget with name stars and rock stars at the time? I guess think of like maybe Tommy or something, you know, like that.
Yeah.
Or something lower budget and have more creative control. They opted for the creative control, but some of the people that were thought about or might have been in play were Mick Jagger, David Bowie, Lou Reed, Cher, all names that were talked about. Mick Jagger wanted to play Dr. Frankenfurter. Vincent Price was actually offered the role of the criminologist, who's sort of the narrator of the film, which he would have been great, of course. And Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, was offered an unspecified role, probably the criminologist, but he declined, which is kind of interesting because this would have, you know, been around the time they were probably approaching him for Star Wars. And, you know, that's a story for another day, but a lot of people know that Alec Guinness was not too keen on doing Star Wars either, being a great actor.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show, 75, right, Joe? The summer, fall of 75?
Yep. Yeah, September 1975, 50 years. And, you know, it's such a part of our culture. Even if you've never seen the film, you're probably aware of some of the songs. You get played at weddings. So many TV shows and movies have done tributes of it. I've seen parodies on the Drew Carey Show, Glee, Third Rock from the Sun, That 70s Show. I could go on and on. But it's definitely a part of the pop culture.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And since Joe brings it to the forefront, he does a great job of, boy, I want to go back and watch that movie. And I actually haven't watched it in probably 20 plus years. So I'll probably put that on my calendar for this month of October. Great job, Joe. What do you got going over at your website for everybody?
Well, in later October, I'll be doing E.T., Fortunato Film School at the City of Green. So you can go to my website, joefortunato.net, and check that out. We'll be talking about more of that in weeks to come. That's actually sneaking up real fast. I wasn't even thinking of the calendar here. But yeah, so check out my website, joefortunato.net, and you can see information on that. We'll talk about it in upcoming weeks.
All right, Joe, as always, my friend, thanks for making time. Love the piece with you each and every Friday, and we'll do it again next week.
Okay, I look forward to it.
All right, there's my good friend Joe Fortunato with us. He takes us to film school, film study. Professor joins us on Fridays at this time here on the Ray Horner Morning Show, 93.5, 1590 WAKR.